And when I went for treatment, like I say, I'm 40 years old now, all these memories started coming back. And it made sense why I resented authority, why I was distrustful of authority. It made sense of me being homeless and like having that carefree lifestyle, because I felt free, and I felt like I had no responsibility. But I knew to make the change, I'd have to address my problem, and I'd have to accept responsibility, and I'd have to make change. But that's where I found the biggest stumbling blocks. I accessed drug services, and the treatment was offered, obviously, methadone or Subutex, nothing else. And I said, well, you've tried all these for years and they've never worked, so why don't we try something else? No, we're not going to do that. So I was denied access, and I actually at one point went really mad, and there was a bit of a confrontation with the doctor in the office, and I got banned for 6 months. Within that time, they amalgamated all the services into one. So the place where I had offended, basically and I went to court for it, I got fined for it, but that had gone. So now the 6 months ban that I had didn't apply. It changed to Turning Point. So I started going to Turning Point, but again, trying to get the treatment that I needed, the doctor was adamant, I'm not giving you that treatment. And I tried methadone, Subutex, Suboxone, codeine, none of them had worked, and the only option left was Diamorphine. And I had to fight for 2 years with my MP on my side to get that treatment, which I've now found out is now funded by the council, Leicester City Council. Several more people have now received that treatment, but for some reason I was made to do psychosocial group sessions. I was like analysed and spoke to the doctors about treatments, and they tried to get me on other treatments, and the only way to get to this treatment was through my MP, and my MP spoke on my behalf. All of a sudden the doctors were like, oh yeah, you can get that treatment, and okay, we will assess you. But I shouldn't have had to take it that far. Well, before, the services that were in Leicester, they were different. There was two, there was CGIT and there was Renaissance House. Now CGIT always got the lion's share because a lot of people who were using drugs were also criminals. So that left Renaissance House with only the handful of people who had jobs or didn't really want their addiction to be known. So there was all undercover people, or you'd get people who had finished their prison sentence or their licence, and they'd get moved on from CGIT to Renaissance House. But they didn't want to give anyone that kind of treatment because at the time it was used and it was piloted between 2010 to 2015 in London, Blackpool. There was about 5 authorities that took on this treatment, and all of them were saying the same thing. Within 2 years of most addicts, the most hardcore reach addicts who had had addictions and we had tried and failed. I'd been to rehab, it had failed. I'd tried prison detox, it had failed. I'd tried home detox, it had failed. Hospital detox had failed. I'd been in a mental health unit and that had failed. So the only option that was left was Diamorphine. They piloted a scheme for 5 years, and they said that most of these addicts, 80% of them were clean within 2 years. So I was all for it, and I went to the doctors, but none of them wanted to do it. But it was only when it turned to Turning Point that things changed. I went to the actual meeting with you, remember, when everybody went, and I spoke to management. Before Turning Point became a service, they introduced themselves and they had a meeting in town, and I turned up. I was one of the last people they ever expected to walk through that door, and I'm so glad I did, because through my own experience and through trying to get that kind of treatment through myself, I've opened doors for other people. I've now found out that there's several other people who now get this treatment who would never have got it before. So I was I was trying to change, so I started doing voluntary work for Lorvos and stuff, and I tried to really better myself and to be a good person, like a productive member of society. But the job centre actually said to me, well, if you can do that kind of work, voluntary work, you can get a proper job. And I was like, but I'm not ready to go back working yet, and I'm trying to get treatment for my addiction, and I'm trying to get treatment for my mental health. Well, all they were interested in was getting me in a job club, and I refused to sign any paperwork. I used to turn up for the appointment because they said if you don't turn up you get your benefits sanctioned. So I used to turn up and say, look, I'm in the process of applying for ESA. It took them 2 years, and it took a judge to actually interview me and write me off and give me ESA. I've been trying to get PIP, personal independence payment, since 2014. It's now 2018, and I've still been knocked back every time I apply for it. With my housing, within the time that I left prison, I'm 45 now, I left prison 5 years ago, and I made that conscious choice to change 5 years ago. And I've stuck with it. It's been hard because I've been lucky that I'm not homeless, I've still got the flat, but the landlord changed, so the rent went up, but they never put my housing benefit up. So I've had to use some of my benefit to pay for my rent. I also use my benefit to pay for electric bill and council tax and stuff. And that leaves me with hardly any money really for myself. And I'm not whinging, I'm not saying I'm hard done by because of that, but the reality is, without me getting PIP, I'm now in debt. I'm now £600 in debt with my rent, and I've applied to the council for help. I've been refused, and they said they won't help me because I haven't submitted the paperwork that I was supposed, and I did, and Cal's been helping me with it. With my mental health, I went to Francis Dixon Lodge after being assessed by a psychotherapist, and they diagnosed me with obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And for the first time in years, it was a weight off my shoulder because I had an answer to why I was acting the way I was acting. I had an answer to my behaviour, to the way I was thinking. And with suffering with an obsessive compulsive disorder, it just made sense. And when I looked into that type of mental health illness, a lot of things clicked and made sense. So then I'm trying to get help with my mental health. Francis Dixon Lodge said to me, because you're in treatment for drugs and you're using too much medication, I wasn't using drugs, just medication from the doctor, we can't treat you. So they passed the book on to Bradgate unit. The Bradgate unit, I've gone there for my appointment, took my card, and the receptionist has said, didn't you get a letter? It's been cancelled. And that was 2 years ago. And I wrote to my MP recently because last year I had a breakdown. I've been since talking to a psychotherapist about my abuse when I was young. I've never told anyone about this, and I came out with it for the first time. I told them about my abuse. I told them about how life was for me as a child growing up, how life has been for me in and out of prison, and I've tried to get help and failed, and it's disheartening. So last year I had a breakdown, and my counsellor, my drug counsellor who works for me, is asking why you had a breakdown. And I said, well, I went Bradgate unit 18 months ago and I'm still waiting for an appointment. So I'm stuck in the system, and I have tried my hardest to change. I have changed, yet there's so much going against a person that I can see why most give up, and I can see why most people don't actually make that change. Well, if they gave mental health treatment in prison, proper psychotherapy sessions, they could treat prisoners and they could help people. If they gave you proper recovery treatment with your drugs, not just give you methadone and just leave you. That's what they do. They just give you the methadone or give you a medication. With the only incentive is if you get the incentive. And the thing is, a lot of these people, they're institutionalised. So now they're committing crime. They don't care if they get caught. If they do get caught, it beats living on the street. A lot of these people, they can't go in hostels because they're violent offenders, or they've been kicked out of most hostels, and they've got no family or friends. They're probably older like me. The family have passed on. So when they get released from prison, they're homeless straight away. They have to wait weeks for the benefit money to be sorted out. And then when they go for genuine help, if they do decide, I want to change, the services are either being cut or they're not addressing the people who are coming to them for help. They're underfunded. The services are breaking down bit by bit. At the moment, we've got people living on the street in Leicester, homeless people who have got learning difficulties and mental health issues. And I only read recently that one had died in London from freezing to death. And I have found through my own experience, through trying to get treatment for my drug issues and drug dependency, a lot of that also relies on me getting help for my mental health. The two go together. But I got failed at, with the mental health. I'm now luckily receiving Diamorphine treatment. I won my case. I do get Diamorphine treatment and it has worked. It's kept me clean. For the first time in 20 odd years, I went nearly a year. I did have a slight lapse because of the doctor not helping, but then the doctor did intervene and did give me more medication. But they test you out, they have to test you to see if you're genuine or not, and that part I didn't agree with because they left me for too long. I'd gone through 9 months of cold turkey, waking up at 3 o'clock every morning, waiting till 9 o'clock for the chemist to open till I could get my medication, and then having to use that and not use drugs. And I maintained it, and the doctor luckily did opt to give me more medication, but that was only on the promise that if I give them one drug test that's negative, they're gonna take that treatment straight off me. In a way it's an incentive, but in another way it's a bit of a blackmail situation to be in. And I've also approached the council about this debt that's accrued. Since I've had a new landlord and my rent's gone up, I've asked for more housing benefit, but I have to pay it out my own benefit, so that's less money that I get. And I'm not joking, I live on beans on toast with bacon if I'm lucky, or I get a couple of good meals a week from one of my friends who literally cooks food for herself, puts some aside for me and brings it over frozen. She freezes 2 or 3 meals that she's cooked in a week and brings them over and gives them to me. If it wasn't for people like her, and I've only got her and a couple of people that do support me, imagine somebody who hasn't got that kind of support. I literally mean I would have to live on not a lot of food. I went to a food bank once because I'd been in hospital through mistreatment and trying to get on the right road, when I was trying to get this Diamorphine treatment. Before that happened, because the situation with the doctors, I was banned for 6 months, so I couldn't access any treatment. Within those 6 months, because what they did to addicts at the time, they were making them sign consent forms to have their medication Subutex crushed before it was given to them. And I questioned them. I was like, why do you want to do that? And they were like, oh, because that's just how it is. It's just procedure. It wasn't. The truth of it was people were concealing it and selling it, and it was a big problem because they was feeding it back into the prison system. The prison now has a massive problem with Mamba, which is like fake cannabis, which got made illegal last year, and Subutex as well. In prison, a tablet can sell for like £50 each. So you can see why people are trying to get these drugs into a prison to make money. So when these days, no matter how hard you try, or no matter what service you access, that service could be running for maybe a year, and you start doing well, then all of a sudden they have the funding cut and they're non-existent. Look what happened to quality of life. They helped so many people, and then all of a sudden the funding got cut. I went and did the peer mentor through probation, whilst I was on probation as well, and I passed, got my certificate, and I was doing really well. Life was good at that point, but I was struggling with my benefit, but I was doing something, I was trying. So I believed foolishly that the system would help me out, but that broke down because I did do the Crime and Time project as well with County Orr, and then the funding got cut for that, so that stopped. County Orr made a video with me and another lady, and we both told our stories like I'm telling you now, about how prison had affected us, how we'd been in children's homes, and how the care system had affected us. We were going to schools and we were meeting the most hard case kids and troublesome kids, and telling them the reality of your behaviour and your actions, all it's going to lead to is prison. And we did a lot of good things, but then the funding got cut, and we were no longer, we was also told, you'll be able to do this voluntary, but we'll never give you a paid job because you're a criminal. I couldn't believe it. So I'd done a lot to change, but I didn't do it just for me and my change. I did that to help other people, and we did. We turned kids' lives around. We had feedback coming back saying that child who you spoke to in that group is now going to school every day. They've stopped shoplifting. They've stopped being disrespectful to the parents. We used to take a fake prison cell round, just set it up, so we could show them the size of a cell and what they'd have to experience for how many years. They got sentenced. One kid, I remember, he was scared, so scared of this fake cell, he wouldn't even go in. And he was, when we told him the reality of the situation about bullies in prison and how tough it is, and it's a very hostile environment, the kid turned around and said, well, if that happened to me, I'll just tell my mum. And we just laughed. And I said, how are you going to tell your mum? When you work for the prison, you're only paid £10 a week. Now, this is where the system is changing. The prisons are being sold off privately, and these people who are buying the prisons, they're bringing work into the prison and using the prisoners for slave labour. They're paying them £10 a week on contracts that are worth £1, £2, £3 million, £5 million. When the system was run by the HMP, by the government, they could never run a prison to profit like they do in America. But because the private sector like Group 4, which has now took over, they can make a profit. So what they're now intending, and the reason the system is set up the way that it is at the moment, is because it's all designed to make you fail. If you try to get mental health treatment, you'll turn up for the appointment and you'll be told, sorry, it got cancelled, and that's it. And then you'll wait months and months for another appointment, if you do get another appointment. Like myself, I never did. I'm still trying to fight that. And you've got people who are homeless who are struggling to access these services. And with the cuts and within benefit as well, there's so many cuts in benefit, and with the PIP system and the way that it is, I remember when I had DVT, the 6 months that I spent out of treatment, I contracted DVT and I nearly died. I went hospital, I was put on a drip, a antibiotic drip for a week, and I was told by the doctor that if the antibiotic drip fails, they're going to have to remove everything lower than my waist apart from my left leg. That's everything. My right leg, everything gone. And I was scared, and they told me I had 3 blood clots trapped in my groin. And that's because when I went to access these services, they were trying to make me sign consent forms to have my medication crushed or messed about with. You can't do that to an obsessive compulsive disordered person. The way I see it is you take that medication how it's supposed to be taken, in a tablet, under your tongue, let it dissolve. They wanted to crush it up. Putting crushed up medication in your mouth in one tip, it dries your mouth out, you like that, it's horrible, and you can't have a drink of water because it's designed to dissolve in your mouth. So if you drink it, it just goes in your stomach and it's wasted. So they were doing that to people, and these people were all signing their consent to, otherwise they were saying, well, we're not giving it you, you'll have to just have methadone. So I was trying hard to change, yet I was having doors shut in my face, or they was trying to implement conditions that were not always acceptable. Most people accepted it because they were too scared to lose their prescription. But I was one of those people that was like, well, if you take my prescription off me, I'll just have to use drugs. You know, what other choice have I got? I know I could just get clean, but I've tried that on my own and I failed. I know I can't go back to prison. I used to go to prison and get clean, and I used to have that mentality. But since I've changed, I don't see prison as a beneficial place anymore for change. It's designed to keep you on the roundabout. So if you go in prison with drug problems, they'll give you the medication and they'll keep you going with medication until you're released. And that's just don't make no sense to me. So these people get out and then they get put in a hostel with other drug users, so they start using drugs again. Then they can't support the drugs, and nor can they get a job. Because if you go for a job and you tell the employer, yes, I have been to prison, they don't want to employ you. They're like, if you've got, and it's so hard to get a job nowadays, you've got 50 people going for one job. If 46 of those people have been to prison and the other 4 have never been in prison, you know one of those 4 people are going to get the job. They hardly take on ex-prisoners or ex-cons. They don't give them the chance, and some of them genuinely have changed. And when it comes to drugs, like I say, the services before Turning Point, you'd just be given methadone or Subutex and that's it. And no matter what you did or whatever you wanted to do to try and change, there was no incentive for it. So it takes, now everything's changed, and with the cuts of services and that, it takes a genuine person with genuine change in their heart to make it happen. If you're somebody who's suffering with mental health, or you've got a learning difficulty or something, and you don't understand like other people do, well, you get resentful, you get angry, and these people go for help, and when they get rejected or when they get failed, they just go use more drugs because they feel more insecure, and then they're committing more crime, and the crimes are getting more and more horrific. But these guys, they're not bothered about being sent to prison anymore because they're given the medication when they go to prison.